Hey everyone, welcome to episode 23. Today's guest is Jeff Hinshaw. In this episode, Jeff shares his thoughts on being an esoteric, soul-centered astrologer, ways to connect with our birth charts, and the zodiac sign Aquarius. Jeff is one of many astrologers I follow and learn from. As I say in the episode, he has such a rich astrological practice between his Substack, podcast, and other offerings. There's many ways to engage with his perspective. Here is Jeff's bio. Jeff Hinshaw is the founder of Cosmic Cousins and a dedicated teacher and guide in the realms of astrology, tarot, and spirituality. With over a decade of experience, Jeff explores the intersection of these esoteric practices as tools for self-discovery, embodied healing, and deeper soul inquiry. In his work, Jeff weaves together astrology, tarot, psychology, meditation, and somatic healing, offering a grounded and intuitive approach that invites both personal and collective transformation. His teachings illuminate how these ancient systems can support modern seekers and reconnecting with their truth and purpose. Through the Cosmic Cousins podcast, Substack, newsletter, and Instagram, Jeff has shared his knowledge of astrology and tarot for over a decade, making these practices more accessible to a wider audience. He covers a range of topics from the basics of astrology and tarot to more advanced concepts like astrocartography and mythic archetypal embodiment. Let me also add that at the end of the episode, I forgot to say thanks so much for meeting me at the through line, Jeff. So I'm saying it now. Thanks so much for meeting me at the through line. I really appreciated getting a chance to speak with you, Jeff, if you're listening to this. It does blow my mind when I'm like speaking to people who I have always wanted to speak to. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. I'm actually speaking to you, you know? So here I am. I'm doing this intro. I'm recording this intro on my voice memo app. Doing it when I can, where I can. So thanks for your patience, all listening to this. Some reflections from this episode. First of all, I would like to make a clarification. Yep, I'm all about clarifications. I don't care. Some people are like, you're wasting your energy clarifying. I like clarifying. I love clarification. That's just me personally. Like, I love, like, I don't know, when I feel like there's something that I do feel will be misunderstood or is not clear, I feel personally, I like clarification, I don't feel like I'm, exerting unnecessary energy by clarifying, and I actually feel like I feel like clarification is a part of energy work in some kind of way. Obviously, I think there's a difference between clarification and like, it being sort of like a, you're having fear of being misunderstood and anxiety. I don't think I have fear and anxiety. I just feel I feel energized by clarifying. I feel like, oh, they might not know what I meant by this, or this might have been confusing, or something. This might feel, people might not know what's going on, and I have like this excitement or this burst of energy, like, okay, well, let me clarify, and anyway, so yeah, just the clarification is that when I was talking to Jeff, I was telling him how, being in the Southwest in Arizona and New Mexico, I had found him and another astrologer living in the desert lands. I don't think I was purposely trying to find astrologers in desert ecosystems. But just like when I find herbalists in living in desert lands, I get really excited. So I was just telling him, like, yeah, I've been following your work, and I also follow another Phoenix-based astrologer. And her name is Marie. She's a Vedic astrologer. And during the episode, I couldn't remember her name. I follow her on Instagram, so I can recognize her face and her Instagram, but for some reason I didn't encode her name completely. So I'm sorry that I couldn't, just say her name, but the other astrologer I follow, the Vedic astrologer, her name's Marie. And yeah, I said something where I was like, I'm not going to say that. It's just that, I've been following what she's been posting, and she's been posting about a lot of the predictions she's made in the past and predictions she's making now, astrological predictions. And she was posting a lot about, Trump. And in that moment of talking to Jeff, I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't go down this route of bringing up Trump. And so I was like, I'm not going to bring him up because that's going to go into a whole thing. But yep, that's my clarification. So for the reflections for this episode, I should just do the reflections all free stream, but like I said, I like writing down my thoughts. Aquarian perspectives. Jeff is an Aquarius sun and an Aquarius rising. He's the second Aquarius sun astrologer that's been on the podcast. And yeah, I'm really interested in what we can learn from the zodiac sign Aquarius, the water bearer, what we can learn from Aquarius suns, moons, risings, and other Aquarius placements. Especially during this time when Pluto is transiting Aquarius for like the next 20 years. And we're seeing all these Aquarian, Uranian, Saturnian changes. Yeah. Shout out to all the Aquariuses out there, all the Aquarius placements. I feel like, yeah, it just, of course, the whole zodiac has wisdom to share. But yeah, just particularly interested in the Aquarian perspective. Aquarian perspectives. The other reflection is that Oprah, Billionaires, and Wealth came up during our convo. Jeff talks about how there needs to be a conversation in the country about wealth, and I agree. Yeah, I'm a person who wants to be resourceful, abundant, and wealthy, and wealth isn't just about money. And I'm getting more comfortable with saying this out loud, because I think in a lot of spaces it's actually not okay for you to express that you want to be you want abundance and you want to be wealthy in different ways. And this whole reflection, like, it's hard to encapsulate my thoughts and how I feel in like a paragraph, because there's a lot of thoughts I could share about this part of our conversation. And the other thought that came to me is like, yeah, it's just, I just feel like me trying to express how I feel about this part in this short amount of time. It just feels like I want more space to share my thoughts on this topic. But I think, like, obviously there have been conversations about money and abundance and wealth. There's always ongoing conversations about these things. But I think maybe, I'm not sure if this is what Jeff was touching on, but I think many of the conversations I've been exposed to, especially when I was in the art world, was how, wealth is bad. So, when we think about this topic, it's like, what kind of conversations and thinking and beliefs are we around when it comes to wealth? How are our minds being shaped around this whole idea and lifestyle, mindset? Because again, wealth isn't just about money. You could have all the money in the world and be unhappy and not have any solid relationships, not know what you want to do. Like, obviously life isn't just about money. But don't get it twisted. We aren't in a post-capitalist world. People need money. I'm sorry, sometimes I get kind of annoyed when people who have money are like, it's not about the money. No, it is. It is. It very much is about money. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, because it's like, if you think about mind mapping and you put the word money or wealth, you wonder how you can mind map that topic. How would you mind map that topic, Well, I hope that made some sense. The final reflection, the Christian faith and Christ consciousness. So the first thing I want to say is that I've been busy living life and haven't been on social media as much. So when I did get on a couple of days ago, I saw posts about the rapture. I had no idea what was going on. Then I proceeded to see more posts about Christianity and Christ consciousness. If you listen to the episodes on the podcast so far, you'll notice that guests from different walks of life, you'll notice that there are guests from different walks of life who have different beliefs and faiths. And one thing I've noticed is that many guests have shared their negative experiences with Christianity, and Jeff shares his own story. And I feel like I've reached out to potential guests who identify as Christian, and they don't want to come on because there's mention of Ifa, Mami Wata, astrology, New Age wisdom. I'm still going to reach out to other guests who identify as Christian to come on, because I feel like, even though I didn't plan on this happening, this is how the podcast is unfolding, where people from different faiths and beliefs and spiritual practices are coming on. And there's actually 2 older people who I would love to interview who identify as Christian. Like, I would love to have them on if they want to come on, if they feel comfortable coming on. So here's the thing. The reason why I'm bringing this up is that it's just like, I'm like, wow, this is another episode where someone is sharing their negative experiences with this religion. And I think it's important to stop and listen to all the various voices talking about their negative experiences and wounding and trauma connected to Christianity. And if you don't know already, because I mentioned this in another episode, I was actually brought up in a Christian household. So I can understand many people's grievances. I find that from my own personal experience that there are mechanisms built into, maybe I'll just say, religion that stop, in this case, Christians from being able to listen to people who aren't Christians. So when so many people have these bad experiences, and there's so much harm and violence that has been done or is being done and rationalized in the name of God and Jesus, in the name of a religion or faith that's supposed to be grounded in God's love, it's like you got to stop and think about what's going on. Because if Christianity is what it says it is, it would be the most healing force on the planet. But if we look out into the world and we hear different people's experiences, it's like, what are we seeing? What are we observing? Right? So the other thing I wanted to say is, like, I have a really great relationship with water, but for other people, they don't have that kind of relationship. Some people have trauma with water, drowning, different types of situations. And I feel like for some Christians, they have a really clear, healthy, and grounded relationship with Jesus and the Christian faith. For other people, that's actually not the case. So I just say that because if you're listening to me and you're like, wow, you don't get it, you don't understand why these people are feeling the way they do, I feel like I'm just saying that to say, like, you may have a great experience. That doesn't mean everyone else is having a great experience, gosh. And I feel like so much awareness and healing can come from stopping and recognizing how Christianity, which often feels like it separates itself, so there's another fierce separation narrative, has hurt people and continues to hurt people. And I think that needs to be recognized. Because then what happens is that mechanism that stops people from listening, when you say things like this, that mechanism gets activated. I'm feeling really hurt and wounded by this religion, and then the mechanism is activated. So it's like being in a loop. You're not heard, nothing changes. And so obviously, and of course, got to be very clear, I said this really like in a blanket statement, like, I don't want it, it's not all Christians and all denominations and just the whole religion is just garbage. That's very important to say. I think especially during this time, it's really important to be able to identify actual real Christians from whatever the hell else is out there that's calling itself a Christian. I feel like that's the biggest thing. We have, So yeah, I just feel like I brought this up because it's interesting that this episode is being published around the time of this rapture and me seeing all these posts about Christianity and Christ consciousness. And, part of me is like, maybe what is happening with this religion, this faith, is, and I'm seeing all the perspectives out there of people who identify as Christian and people who don't. Like, I'm like, oh, maybe this is a religion or a consciousness that's is going through or needs to have some sort of upgrade or evolution. I'm like, oh, something's happening here, Anyway, I'm in my college dorm saying all of this, so I wanted to leave so I could just freely talk about this without possibly being heard. But hey, this is going on the podcast for lots of people to hear. So I hope all of this made sense. And if it didn't, I'm so sorry because, yeah, I. I think that this is something really to stop and ponder about because there's a huge amount of power that the Christian religion, faith, consciousness holds. A huge amount of power. And so I'm going to end there. Thank you for sticking with me this far. I hope you enjoy episode 23 with Jeff Hinshaw. Welcome to the podcast, Jeff. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you for having me. I love the title of your podcast, Meet Me at the Through Line.
Thank you. Yeah, I it was on my heart and it just happened. So yeah, I'm excited that you're here. Excited that you're interested in being on my podcast. And so my first question for you is, are you an 80s or 90s baby?
I'm an 80s baby. Yeah.
Wow. See, I was thinking you were a 90s baby, so I was really
Aw.
surprised. Wait, yeah, I was really surprised. So I'm curious, what was it
Yeah.
like being a kid and a tween or teenager during the 90s?
Yeah, well, I guess I wasn't really a teen until the new millennium because I was born at the end of the 80s. So, yeah, I think it's interesting to look back at now retrospectively, but the 90s was a very Aquarian time period, especially the second half of the 90s. Two outer planets were transiting in Aquarius, including Uranus and Neptune. And so those outer planets are more generational, and so they give us a texture of the time period. And Aquarius is the sign associated with things like technology and the internet. And so when I think of the 90s, that is like when the internet really came into my life was in like 1995. And so it was a very Aquarian time period. And I am an Aquarius sun, Aquarius rising. So that's how I think of my time growing up as being part of the generation that was young and minds were moldable in a sense while the internet was being brought into collective consciousness. So I was like in chat rooms in second grade chatting with people from all over the world. So, but it was still like it was a lot of catfishing going on at that time. We didn't have like profiles and things like that until MySpace came. But yeah, I think about growing up during that time period. I of course think of like pop music at that time was like a certain kind of vibe with like I think of like Britney Spears and like Justin Timberlake and Christina Aguilera
Yes,
and like Destiny's
yes.
Child and TLC and like it was like definitely a vibe. And so the older I get, the more that I'm like unpacking what it means to be a quote unquote millennial. And for me, the image that's coming to mind right now is playing hooky from school so that I could stay at home all day and play The Sims. And that's when my love of astrology was really born, was through The Sims. Because if anyone is like nerdy enough to remember playing The Sims, when you created your character and made its personality type, there was a little zodiac wheel on the side that would change the signs based off of what personality traits you gave it. And so
My
that's how I
gosh.
was introduced to astrology originally, was through The Sims, which, by the way, was released on an Aquarius new moon when Neptune and
Ah,
Uranus were in Aquarius. So The Sims, as a birth chart, has like six placements in Aquarius.
astrology never fails. It just it's you can't make this stuff up,
I
you
know, and we're just
know?
kind of launching into the cosmos right now with astrology talk, which is kind of how I do. And I know that this isn't an astrology podcast. So I'm just naming that and acknowledging that. And we don't have to just talk about astrology, but it is the lens in which I view the world.
Oh no, please. Let's do a deep dive. Please ast- do what you have to do, say what you want to say. Because I am here for it, and I know there's going to be a lot of listeners here for what you have to say. And yeah, it is interesting to like grow up during this pivotal time in history where the internet is being born and is getting bigger and known around the world. Like there were so many technological advancements that, to my knowledge, I don't know, we could, that's a rabbit hole, but no other human beings experience, like the internet, which is
Yeah.
now, you know is shaping life in interesting, incredible ways. um
Yeah. Well, I was born in the year of the rabbit, so I'm all about rabbit holes. Let's jump in. I think that when I think of the name of your podcast, Meet Me at the Through Line, the first thing that it brought up for me was actually I felt it more as like a finish line. So I was like, oh, like I'm coming to this podcast, maybe gonna talk about things that I'm celebrating. Like like meeting at the finish. I know it's not finish line, but that's what it like brought up for me at first. But then then I was like, no, but it's through line. So through line for me, like is such an important thing in astrology is like what is the through line in someone's birth chart, like how do you weave the sun, moon, and rising together, and can you find that soul thread that weaves
Mhm.
together the tapestry of the purpose in the birth chart. So when I think of through line, that's what it makes me think of. And also I incorporate many other practices into astrology as well, including things like tarot, esotericism, psychology, somatic embodiment, queer liberation, social justice, I'm
Yes.
all of it, I'm like weaving together. So meeting at the through line is like definitely like my cup of tea. So thanks for inviting me to have a tea party with you today.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you're here. I love everything that you just said, like, and how you weave all of that together. It's really amazing. And for my Gemini moon self, I
Mm,
really, like I take to all the different ways that you're working with astrology to communicate astrology. And yeah, the through line in our astrology charts, that's very interesting.
hmm.
Um,
Could I share with you what might be like a window opening of a through line for you?
yes,
Because you did
please.
share with me your big three. Have you ever shared that on the podcast before?
No, well, I think I've said it in different episodes, so I'll say it all together. I'm a
Yeah.
Scorpio sun, October Scorpio sun. I'm a Gemini moon and a Sag rising.
Hmm. So, okay, there's a thing I like to do. I call it personal myth making. And it's where you take the sun, moon, and rising, and it does act as, I'm going to say, a through line that weaves together your chart so that you can understand the myth that's unfolding. So, an exercise I like to do is share with someone their personal myth based off of their sun, moon, and rising. And then you trust the first memory or image or thought that pops into your mind after I share it with you. And then we'll explore that. It'll be like a doorway that we can walk through together. Do you feel
Oh,
open to doing that?
yes. I've never had this done before. Yeah.
Well, that's because I conceptualized it, so I don't know if anyone else would have invited you into this. But if someone's listening to this and would like to adapt their own version of it, I wouldn't mind. Just maybe say that you learned it from Cosmic Cousins. So the sun sign is like the character of the story. So you're a Scorpio sun. So your character, if we want to make it like the actual symbol of the scorpion, we can, which is sometimes I say like the very like intense and perceptive scorpion would be the character of the story here. And then the moon is the backdrop. Where is this perceptive scorpion dwelling? Gemini moon. Gemini is connected to communication and our local community, our neighborhood. So I usually say in their neighbor's backyard. So now it gives like a little bit of a social feel to this like piercing scorpion. And then what are they doing in their neighbor's backyard? Sagittarius rising, expanding the horizons of our mind and our world. So
Mm,
it's the piercing scorpion in their neighbor's backyard, expanding the horizons of our mind and our world. So
that sounds like me.
take that in. What's the first memory or thought or symbol or image that comes to mind when I share that with you?
Um, let's see.
I mean, in one hand, it's literally like you podcasting and interviewing people is what I think of. Like you're both a teacher, Sagittarius, and an interviewer with other people, Gemini, and doing it in a very like you sent me this like list of things to do to prepare. Like it's very you're very like methodical in your approach. Actually, that maybe people don't see behind the scenes, just very Scorpio. But yeah, what does it bring up for you?
That's so interesting. Well, that whole like, the form that you fill out, and I always felt like that was really Gemini, but I could see that being Scorpio.
I think
I
it's the
don't know.
combo. I do think it's the combo. Yeah.
Yeah, more and more I keep seeing out in the social media streets, like people talking about the combination of Gemini and Scorpio, which I never really put together until I started, hearing different perspectives. I think the first image that came though was like me being in some sort of box or confined space, but I'm not actually in a box, and then just sort of pushing out, you know, and not feeling so claustrophobic, but just sort of pushing, pushing,
Yeah.
and like pushing something that's invisible and it reverberates
Mm.
out, but it's being pushed out. I don't know. Um, that's
Yeah.
that's what came to mind. But
I have a Rolodex of famous people in my mind of knowing their sun moon combos. And so the famous person that comes to mind, speaking of being a 90s or 80s baby, like a millennial, is Alanis Morissette. But she's reversed from you. She's a Gemini sun with a Scorpio moon. But that's who's coming to mind right now. And she actually does have a podcast too. Did you know that?
no, I actually haven't heard of her before.
Alanis Morissette. Oh, she's like kind of this like angsty like indie singer from the 90s, like isn't it ironic, don't you think? It's like rain on your wedding day. It's like 10,000 spoons but all you need is a knife. It's like meeting the man of your dream and meeting his beautiful dot dot dot
Oh
husband.
my God.
You think she's gonna say wife because it rhymes, but then she later updated it later to husband. Yeah, check out Alanis Morissette.
I will. I will. Well, see, that combination is completely different because those Scorpio moons, whew,
Yeah.
whew, Scorpio moons, it's a lot.
Yeah.
I liken Scorpio moons to like, if you're sailing in the middle of the ocean and
Mm.
you know,
Oh,
you're,
you know who's Scorpio with Gemini moon is RuPaul.
oh wow.
Yeah.
You said a Scorpio moon?
No, RuPaul's Scorpio with Gemini moon.
Oh, a Gemini moon.
Yeah, you have
Yeah.
the same combo as RuPaul. And also Parker Posey.
I feel like I don't know who Parker Posey is. Oh my gosh, is
You
this
gotta
someone
look
I
these
should
people
know?
up later. Yeah, Parker Posey's kind of like a cult following actress,
Oh wow. Well,
but
yeah,
very
you
like kind
see.
of like indie, like underground. But like recently was on a new show that people were loving. What show was she most recently on? Parker Posey. Um, let's see. Yeah, White Lotus. Parker Posey was on the recent
Oh,
season
White
3 of
Lotus.
White Lotus. Yeah, and is part of the main cast in this Emmy-winning anthology series.
Well, I gotta check these people out because actually I do look for famous people who have similar astrology to, research, get a feel. And I haven't really researched yet the Scorpio Gemini combo, so I will definitely check out these folks. Yeah, and that's actually how I do a lot of research, probably for a lot of astrologers. You look at celebrity charts so you can understand what's going on. Um, well, now that I know you have a Rolodex of celebrity names in your mind, I might come up with a last minute question about a celebrity chart.
Sure.
Um,
It's not like my only thing I do, but it's just I've never really been interested in celebrity culture until I realized that they actually are really great talking points for people with astrology because they are more commonly known, so people can talk about them and reflect on their work. And yeah.
Yeah, it's fascinating to see some celebrity charts or people who are well known and see it all play out.
Hmm.
Um, so I love that game that you did earlier. So I'm gonna think about my big three and that through line. Um, I mean, yeah, I think a lot about my Gemini moon, but yeah, I should probably think more about being a Scorpio. Okay, so all right, well, thank you. Thank you for that. I also wanted to ask you, I know you recently moved because I saw in your IG stories, but so you live in near Joshua Tree, and I just love to know, like, what is that like living in the desert?
Yeah, well, it is a place that either takes you in and cradles you or eats you up and spits you out. I mean, kind of like any other intense places. Like I've always kind of been drawn to these extreme places. Like I lived in New York City for years and then I sold all of my stuff and moved to the big island of Hawaii to go learn about sustainable living. And then after a year of living in Hawaii, I moved to LA and like I just kind of have gone from city to rural and then I found myself in Joshua Tree. And so yeah, I like these kind of intense places that allow you to immerse yourself in the elements or the energy. They're kind of like vortexes. So I do think that Joshua Tree is a vortex. It is a
Mhm.
very unique desert on the planet. And as in, Joshua trees are endemic to Joshua Tree. They only live in Joshua Tree and they are an endangered tree. Like they may not be here in a few generations to come as climate is changing. And there's other plants there that I have deeply connected to, including the creosote, which is said to be and thought to be the oldest shrub on the planet. And it only grows in the Mojave Desert, Sonoran Desert, and parts of Mexico as well. So it's very also unique to this part of the world. So you get the opportunity to meet plants that you wouldn't in any other places in the world. And because of that, they have their own kind of unique vibrational medicine for you. And you know, Joshua trees kind of have like a Dr. Seuss kind of feel to them. Like they're like pretty quirky little creatures and they like to have space from each other. And when I tune into Joshua trees, they kind of feel like a wacky aunt or uncle, offering you sage advice, but also from like kind of like different perspective. So yeah, they're quite quirky trees, I do think, but also very wise. And the stargazing in Joshua Tree is incredible. There is the Sky's the Limit Observatory that's on the northeast side of the park that you can enter in through 29 Palms, which is another town. And so when people say Joshua Tree, they could be referring to the actual town of Joshua Tree. They could be referring to the entirety of the national park, which, by the way, Joshua Tree was founded as a national park during Scorpio season. So Joshua Tree is a Scorpio, if we want to look at it through that lens.
Wow.
But also, when people say Joshua Tree, they could be including the like 7 to 8 different towns that all border Joshua Tree National Park, which includes places like Yucca Valley, Wonder Valley, 29 Palms, Flamingo Heights, Landers. There's all these different little pockets of towns too that are alongside of Joshua Tree. And because of that, it is a place where you will never get bored and there's always something to do, even though you think that maybe you would be isolated out in the middle of the desert. And maybe for someone who's coming to just visit Joshua Tree, they might be like, oh, wow, I don't really get this. But if you know someone that lives there and you get to walk through the threshold of community there, you'll start to learn that it is a very vibrant place with lots of artists who are maybe living off grid on one hand. That's like one end of the spectrum. And then on the other hand, someone who maybe is a very successful artist who's like somehow built this very elaborate mansion in the middle of the desert. So it ranges from people living in trailers off grid to very wealthy people, which is similar to New York City. It's actually the closest to New York City out of anywhere I've ever lived, even though it's in the middle of the desert, because it is this like weird vortex that people are drawn to. And you also interact with people from all over the world. Like people come and visit Joshua Tree from different countries. So you'll sometimes hear someone walking down the road speaking in an accent or another language. And then also there's this kind of vibe where in New York, you kind of have to want to be there to make it work. And the same as with Joshua Tree. Like you're not going to be there unless you like absolutely like want to make it work. And sometimes it takes certain kind of navigating to make that a reality. But yeah, it's magical. Have you been?
I haven't, and I absolutely loved how you just described Joshua Tree. I love that so much. I could feel the magic while you were talking, and I'm like, I said that I'm drawn to your astrology practice for different reasons, but also it could be like a vibrational thing. I was in Arizona. I've been in the Southwest over the last couple of years, and I just left.
Hmm.
Um, but I think probably being in New Mexico and Arizona, I what am I trying to say? Well, I told you in the email I found you and another astrologer right when I was, preparing to leave the desert lands, but I don't know, I felt like maybe I felt some resonance because you're in Joshua Tree, but
Yeah.
also uh, imagine being an astrologer in a vortex. You're living in a vortex.
Yeah.
And also, I like what you're saying about crossing thresholds to connect to the magic of a place. I believe that. Like, you can be somewhere, but when you cross that threshold, that's when you start being able to connect in a different way. Because I remember when I was in New Mexico, I crossed the threshold into community there. And while there, meeting different people, we're sharing dreams. And it's like, I would never hear people who lived here for years, I would never hear their dreams if, I was more like a tourist. I don't know. So I do believe there's something to that. Yeah, I've never been to Joshua Tree, but it's someplace I would love to visit, you know.
Who was the other astrologer?
I can't remember her name. Let me go look it up right now. She's actually
Yeah.
based in Phoenix and she's a Vedic
Oh,
astrologer. And
interesting.
she's the first Vedic astrologer I follow because let me tell you, when I start going into sidereal astrology and I start wandering, I get confused, So sometimes I stick to my astrological terrain
Yeah.
because I'm not
They're
totally.
two different systems. It's like if you're going to see an acupuncturist versus like an Ayurvedic practitioner, like it's very different practices, even though they're both astrology. Both might resonate in certain ways, but I think it is good to kind of maybe stick with one of them as your main practice.
I know, right? Because let me tell you. But the thing though is that let me see if I can find her. I was just looking at she's also anyway, I'm not going to say that. She let's see if I can find her. I should probably know her name, but I just
No,
started
it's all good. I mean, if it's a
tuning
Vedic
into her.
astrologer, I probably don't know them anyway, so no worries.
Maybe if I find her, I'll put her in the show notes. But she's based in Phoenix.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, I don't know. Like, I think it's just cool that you live there. And I love how you also share photos of the actual planets in the sky, like Venus.
Yeah.
I think when I first started my astrology practice, you know, I was not thinking about, where can I find Venus in the sky,
Yeah.
you know? So when you first started astrology, did that come later, seeing the planets in the sky?
Yeah, I would say after I sold all of my things and left New York and moved to the big island of Hawaii, that's when I started connecting with the sky. And I think that was part of why I left is New York is a vortex of cultural expansion and education. Like you're on a rapid path of learning when you're in New York. But not necessarily through nature. And so I think looking back, that's probably why I was ready to leave, was because I was ready to ground my practices into the earth and into my body. And so when I lived in Hawaii, I lived in a tent for a year in the jungle, and I was out looking at the sky every night and got a very intimate relationship, particularly with the moon, because when you're living in a tent, when it's a full moon, you're going to be awake. Like it's like full on, like the moon is just shining down and you don't need a flashlight on those evenings. And the same as in the desert too. On a full moon night, you can go on a hike. You don't really need a flashlight. You should bring one probably just for safety reasons. But the full moon, when you're in a place that doesn't have a lot of like modern lighting around, it acts as like this great flashlight, that illuminates the path ahead. So, yeah, I think the sky, getting an intimate relationship with the sky has been a part of my practice. And when I hear someone's sun moon combo, I now know what moon phase they were born under. And so, you as a Scorpio sun with a Gemini moon, it means that you were born just a few days before the Sagittarius, or before, no, just a few days after the Taurus full moon. Because every Scorpio season we have a Taurus full moon. So you were actually born during the waning gibbous moon phase, which is actually the same moon phase that I was born under as well. So then that's another layer that you can start getting intimate with. And so, yeah, you were born just a few days after the full moon, which is kind of like the cleanup phase after the party that was the full moon. And so usually waning gibbous individuals are the ones who are like, okay, that was like a lot. So like, let's start cleaning up and like getting organized and putting the pieces together. And so they're really good, like therapists, as like helping people process their emotions. And then if I know your sun sign and your rising sign, I also know around what time of day you were born. So since you were a Scorpio sun with a Sagittarius rising, it means you were born a few hours after sunrise. So you were probably born around like 8 or 9 a.m., I would imagine.
Well, I'm not gonna tell my birth time, but
Oh,
I was born actually before 12 p.m. But
yes.
the thing is that my birth certificate says I was born blank a.m. And then my mom gives me another birth certificate. Oh, am I talking about? My mom gives me another birth
Oh.
certificate, and it says I was born that same time, but at night. And then I was like, what the hell? I've been like researching my birth chart with this one time. And then so the way that I check this is I just check each time based on what's going on in my life.
Mm.
And it coincides with the morning
Sounds
time.
right. Okay. I would keep with that then. Trust that.
Yeah, because I'm just like, sometimes if I've read a birth chart for someone who's not sure about their time, the way that I check that, and I don't know if you do this too or other astrologers, it's like, well, what's going on in your life? Like, and try to match
Yeah.
up the astrology with what's going on. But
Yeah.
like, it's so interesting how much of a key your birth time is.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, sometimes, you could, I've tried to read for people who are like, oh, I don't know, maybe I was born at this time, and you have like an estimate, but it just feels like when you have your exact birth time, you don't have to do like all this guessing and I'm not sure and whatever. But, I thank you for sharing that because I think a lot about when we are born and where we're born, like these small details literally make up who we are. Like I told you before we pressed record, you could have been born the year before. You could have been born the next week. You would have been a completely different person, but it just so happens that you were born on this particular day at this particular time when of these movements were going on in the sky. That's why, like, if I was born in 1990, I would be a completely different person. Maybe that's not the best, most productive way to think, but it does. I don't know. Do you ever think that, like, those small details that?
Yeah, I think I'm more thinking about my own birth chart and what I came here to do instead of thinking about other birth charts. But yeah, I hear you. That makes sense.
Yeah, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Because I just feel like if I was born in 1990, my rising would have been different. Like I have all of these theories. But I don't know where I was going with that, but but I do want to ask you, so you're actually the third astrologer on this podcast. Woot woot. And I'm curious, like, what was the moment you decided, I think I want to be an astrologer?
Um, it just kind of happened organically, through my studies, and through my studies, I would just start sharing with people close to me about their birth chart and just seeing the kind of transformation that I brought into people's lives to kind of have that objective cosmic perspective that I had. I had this innate ability to activate and awaken certain parts of people that acted as a catalyst of transformation in their life. And so it just kind of happened naturally where people were like, whoa, that was really powerful. And can I pay you for that? Like, I feel like I need to give you money. So it just kind of happened where um, it became a way for me to make money and income. And that just started building over time. And then I learned through a various trial and errors of like how to increase my rates and how to build out structures so that I could be working with people more long term. So I offer one-on-one mentorships where people sign up for 6 months to 12 months with me, and we meet every other week. And I meet them at a certain chapter in their life and help to be a doula of transformation in many ways. And so it's not something that I ever sought out, like, I want to be an astrologer and this is what I'm going to do. I've never really done that, actually. It's always just been kind of an organic expression of who I am, whatever I'm doing. I don't really navigate the world in the way that our capitalist consumerist culture has taught us to. I think that's part of me being an Aquarius, is that I've just living my life, doing what I love. And if you want to come along for the journey with me, then let's do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to push my beliefs or worldview or philosophy on anyone. I grew up in a very kind of conservative Christian family, and I know what it feels like to have other people's beliefs forced upon you. So that's not something I ever want to do. So I don't really try to convince people of astrology in any kind of way. And if someone's resistant to it, then I'm like, oh, cool. I'm not going to fight back about this because I've connected with thousands of people who do resonate with this vocabulary and perspective.
I love that, because there's still a part of me that just wants people to know so badly about astrology, but I feel like I'm slowly getting to where you are, where it's like, if you're interested, you're interested. If you're not, you're not. Um, but listening to you speak just made me think about like the evolution of astrologers, when you first start out and you're growing, you're finding yourself and who you become as an astrologer. Yeah, and I'm just so curious. I wish I could have, I don't know, seen your journey from when you first were playing Sims to now. Um, so I forgot how many years you've been practicing astrology, but what has your experience been like studying the stars over the years?
Um, what has my experience been like? It's hmm. I don't really know how to answer that.
That's okay. Like,
Yeah.
like, like for me, for example, you know, I say this in another episode. I feel like I've had a lot of Uranian experiences. And once I started researching Uranus, I was gaining more clarity on certain things that I would experience. And so I don't know in your own life if you've seen yourself being drawn to certain planets. I noticed that you say you have like this devotional practice towards the asteroids, like
Yeah.
that's an interest.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I have many different interests. So that's one reason why I think I love astrology so much is that it's a practice that is infinite. Like, not one human being will ever be able to study all of the aspects of astrology because it's such an in-depth practice that is as vast as the universe. And so I think that that really sparks my curiosity in many ways. And so when I feel like I've studied all that I want to study about the planets, then there's hundreds of asteroids that you can connect with. And so that's one of my specialties as astrologer is connecting to the asteroids in one's chart, particularly the four main asteroids, which are the four asteroids that were the first to be discovered and the four largest asteroids that represent the four aspects of the divine feminine, mother, sister, daughter, wife. And I really like turning the asteroids on in a birth chart. Yeah. So that's like part of my evolution with astrology. But, you know, sometimes it can feel overwhelming the amount of information that there is to digest. And so if someone's new in their astrology journey, I would just start small and just start to get to know the signs, the 12 signs and the planets. But if you are at a point in your journey where you're ready to expand and grow, then the asteroids are there for you whenever you're ready.
Yeah, yeah. It's truly vast. Astrology, astronomy, the stars, life, so vast. And that's why it's exciting because there's so much to learn and you just take your time. Um, so I have a bit of a lead up to the next question. Like I said before, I'm really drawn to your astrology practice because of the way you write and communicate. So for some reason, I feel like I can understand what you're saying, and I just feel drawn to your words. And I noticed that you received your bachelor's in psychology and a BFA in creative writing from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington. And I'm like, that's such a great combo for an astrologer. So even though it's not in the word astrologer, I feel like astrologers are basically like earthly cosmic communicators. So we don't say book a reading with a communicator. It's like book a reading with an astrologer. And so, astrologers communicate what's going on with the sun and the moon, different planets, other celestial bodies, and star systems, and how they're connected to the earth. And you've written some amazing Substack articles. Like I really appreciated Gemini as a psychopomp. Um,
Mm.
so and all your Substack posts are basically like they could each be a podcast episode. You could really dive down into each post, and I just wonder, is there any of your own writing, whether it's published or not, that has made you pause and go like, huh?
It has made me what?
That has made you pause and go like, huh?
What, what do you mean? I think all of them. Yeah,
Is
because
there one
they're
in
all like, things that I've pondered, so that's why I've written them.
but is there one in particular that you're like, like it's really stayed with you?
Oh, I guess I wasn't sure what you meant by I wasn't sure exactly what that
That's
means.
okay. Well, I
Yeah.
just meant like, from your own writing. Is there one that's moved you, like your own writing? Because we can be moved by someone else's writing, but what's coming out of your own self.
Yeah, I think all of them. I'd be curious for you if there's one that you has stuck with you. Because I think all of my pieces are like have moved me. That's why I've written them because I've needed to move those thoughts through my body. So all of them is how I'd answer that.
Well, I really appreciated Gemini as a psychopomp. I was wondering
Hmm.
if I'm saying that word right because
Yeah.
I've said this to a lot of people who I've read charts for that I think Gemini energy is often misunderstood. And I think it's a sign that perhaps needs constant clarity and like reframes because I just don't think a lot of people understand Gemini. And I don't think, if you're not an astrologer, you're not an astro nerd, and you might just see pop astrology, don't think that I think there could be more education and perspectives on Gemini. And I just really appreciated that piece of writing because, it helped me gain clarity on myself, you know.
Yeah. I think actually like all of the signs are misunderstood, actually. Like if I'm being real, like yeah, I think Gemini is very misunderstood, but I think actually all of them are because we live in a time period where things get kind of put into a meme or into like a 15-second TikTok video where we're kind of like making everything pop, like literally
Mhm.
a meme pops, but like everything, it's like pop astrology just kind of misunderstands it. And actually, the people who are astrologers, not all of them, but a lot of them who have like 100,000 followers are the ones who are just doing like the pop astrology where it's very like clickbaity and it's like catchy and like a little kind of like sassy and like reads the sign for filth and like it's like okay, but like let's go a little bit deeper into what the ancient esoteric meaning is of Gemini, which is Gemini is a psychopump. And I think each of the 12 zodiac signs have their own layer to them that are much more in depth and nuanced and esoteric. But the word esoteric, its twin word, which would mean the opposite, is exoteric, which is EX. And exoteric is more thoughts that are meant for mass consciousness, whereas esoteric is not meant to be understood by the masses. It's more about one's
Mm.
own personal intuitive interpretation through their lived experience and experiential wisdom that is only gained through some sort of mystical encounter. So, esoteric astrology is actually never really meant to be pop or mass understood. And so it's an interesting pathway for someone to take to be an esoteric practitioner because it means that maybe your work won't be accepted by the masses or mass produced in some sort of way, which is great on one hand. And on the other hand, it's like we do live in a capitalist society where we need to make money and be successful in order to build the life of our dreams or whatever. So being an esoteric astrologer is a intentional choice that that you might be up against some odds in the process, but it comes out of a desire for truth and reckoning.
Mhm.
So yeah, Gemini as a psychopump is the messenger between worlds. And that's what a psychopump is. And that's the role of Gemini when you actually go into the ancient archetypal story of Gemini is the one who can go into the underworld and receive the messages and come out of the underworld untouched,
Mhm.
and can deliver those messages to others, which is actually, as a Scorpio, is kind of interesting for you because Scorpio is also connected to the underworld. But Scorpio actually goes into the underworld and then dies there and then is reborn. So Scorpios is a little bit more intense than Gemini, who's like, "Ooh, just gonna go into the underworld for the day and come back out and let you know what I learned there." So yeah, at first glance, Gemini might seem kind of lighthearted or playful and curious, but beneath it, there's this depth that's much more ancient role that Gemini holds for us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what I wanted to say when I read that Substack post. I wanted to say thank you. But you know, it's something that I'm still maybe struggling with is exactly what you're saying, that I feel like I'm still maybe not over things needing to be like seen and heard on a mass scale. And if it's not perceived on a mass scale, then it's like, why? If
Yeah.
it's not going to be seen by thousands of people and what, blah, 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 why? And I think I don't know why I'm struggling with this, but I really liked how you clarified the meaning of esoteric, because I just think that's a message we get often on social media that, if it's not on a mass scale, some kind of mass scale, then you're not reaching people, you're not having an impact, like all of those different stories. And it's just not true. And because I navigate the world living in a multiverse, that makes it even more not true, you know?
Yeah.
So I feel like maybe I'm gonna get ready and ask you about being an Aquarius sun, but I don't know, do you feel like as an Aquarius sun that's easier for you to accept?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's interesting because Aquarius is actually the sign that is connected to mass consciousness. It is all about collective communication. But this is where each sign again has this kind of esoteric, nuanced, more in-depth understanding is that actually we're all 12 zodiac signs. And so when I think of esotericism and things being underground and not for mass consciousness, I think of Scorpio, which is connected to the underworld or the underground, the esoteric. So as an Aquarius rising, most Aquarius risings will then have a Scorpio midheaven. So the midheaven is one's public role in the world. And so that's interesting to consider as someone who's an Aquarius rising is waking up to their gifts to communicate collective thought to mass consciousness, but then has a Scorpio midheaven and is quite esoteric or occults or underground in that approach. So that's where, we could look at these two signs in dialogue. So for someone like you who's a Scorpio sun, I'd also be curious to know where Aquarius is in your chart and how you're using Aquarius. And I'd imagine it's in your third house of communication since you're a Sagittarius rising.
Well, one of these days I'll get an astrology reading with you, but yeah, my natal chart Aquarius is in my third house. But if you look in my chart, um, yeah, I'm a Scorpio. My son's in the 12th
12th
house.
house. Yeah.
So, I feel like in my own life, I'm dealing with a lot of like having something to say, but my whole chart is about being underground and
Yeah.
it's the opposite of mass, whatever. And
But then you have Aquarius in the third house of communication. And how well does that fit with you hosting a podcast, right? But then you are a Scorpio sun in the 12th house, which is like deeply hidden and spiritual and mystical and esoteric. So all of us, like, it's like that's the thing is like we're not just one sign. The whole chart is going to speak to the complexities of our um, contradictions and also our multitudes. We all contain multitudes. Yeah.
yes, but sometimes it's so frustrating because I don't know if you think this, but I feel like astrology and our charts and the cosmos has some jokes because when you look in certain charts, you'll see contradictions. Like for example, I looked at Britney Spears' chart one time and, she's obviously, it shows in her chart wealth, but it also shows her struggles with like her family and being under conservatorship. So it's like, wow, here's this person who's a superstar and she's wealthy, but now she has these challenges. And so it's like when you look in the chart, you see, oh, well, this is happening with this person. This person is X, Y, or Z. But then you look here and it's like there's some sort of challenge. It's like a catch 22 of some sort. And I always wonder, like, how do you manage something? How do you manage that tension, I guess? Um, so that's always been really frustrating. But if you're an Aquarius rising and you have a Scorpio midheaven, it's like, okay, so you have these interesting, unique, expansive thoughts to share, but you also have this element of your chart where you're underground and maybe you're not as seen. So then it's like, so what's the deal? That's me talking to the cosmos. I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah. I think that, it's a little like, wink from the universe in some sort of way that, how are you going to juggle the two energies? How are you going to dance with them? And I think that I do that with the work that I do. Like I'm trying to embody my chart to my full capacity. And so the cosmic joke is that, we spend so much time trying to control and define our life when really life was never asked for our control. We're not meant to micromanage the universe. And so I think sometimes people will come into an astrology practice trying to micromanage the universe when really it was asking for our participation in the mystery of the unfolding of it to begin with. And so it's more about the surrender to it than the trying to like fit yourself into that mold. Astrology is actually meant to break us open so that our cosmic stardust can come out,
Ooh.
not in. You know what I mean? So it's like just letting go of the need to control it. And it's the paradox that we hold with humor and reverence all at the same time. It's like laughing at a funeral, like but not because like you're laughing at the person who's passed away, but because you're like, oh wow, we're all gonna die one day. It's like kind of that paradox, I think, a little bit.
Well, I certainly needed to hear that about surrender, because I think the other thoughts I have with astrology is that like you can't force things, like
Yeah.
you can't force. Um, it's
Well,
not
you
gonna work.
can, but maybe don't.
I'm like, you can, but then it might still not work.
Yeah.
I've definitely had my moments in life where I forced something and it didn't work or it got worse. So you're an Aquarius sun.
It's
And
true.
you know what? Aquarius, Aquarius, Aquarius. In episode 14, I interviewed another astrologer. I don't know if you know her, Camille Michelle Gray. She's also an Aquarius sun, and I'm going to ask you the same question I asked her. What is it like being an Aquarius?
What episode are we?
This is going to be episode 22. Oh
A
wait, oh
spirit
wait, wait,
number.
wait. Oh,
Oh.
oh wait. Is that your spirit number?
Yeah.
Because you might be 23,
Oh, well,
actually.
I'll take 23. Whatever wants to come will come. I'm also
Okay.
life path 5, so 23 would equal 5. So, I'll take that too. I'll take that. What was the question? What is it like being an Aquarius?
Yes.
Exactly that, where I'm like interrupted the question and asked, what episode are we? Because you just said that astrologer was episode 14 and I was born on the 14th. And, it's kind of where my mind goes is with numbers. So pattern recognition, seeing numbers and understanding them. Like my best subject in school was math. I have a
Wow.
very mathematical, scientific brain, but the problem is that Aquarius doesn't follow the rules. They do it their own way. And so I would sometimes get marked down in my math classes because I would find the correct answer, but I would find it in my own way of calculating. That's very Aquarian, where I'm like, actually, I don't like the way that you're teaching how to find this. I think I have a quicker way. And I would do things like that. And it would sometimes to some teachers frustrate them and they would mark me down. And other teachers are like, you're a genius. Wow, I never thought to get that answer this way. Or like, how did that actually, you went a much longer way to get the answer, but it was very creative and somehow you still got the same answer. And I think that was the first memory that popped in my mind when you asked the question is problem solver and
Mhm.
very kind of expansive, unique, innovative ways so that if someone is having, if they feel stuck in their life, for instance, find an Aquarius that you trust that resonates with you. You use that word before. You're like, oh, I think it's because I resonate with you. You're not going to resonate with all Aquariuses. Each Aquarius has their own unique vibration. And if you look at the glyph for Aquarius, it is energy waves. So Aquarius is all about resonance and vibration. So if you find an Aquarius that you resonate with, they can help you brainstorm the house down, you know,
Yes.
and
Oh my
and
God.
lift the cosmos up at the same time. So it's like um I think as an Aquarius, like I need to find other people that I resonate with too. Like that's important. And when you're recording a podcast, when you look at the screen, it makes energy waves, which is Aquarius's glyph. And so one way of finding people that you resonate with is through putting your voice out there. And then people will be like, oh my gosh, you just put words to something that I've been feeling my whole life and I never knew. That's very Aquariuses have the ability to do that if they resonate with you and your vibration. If they don't, Aquariuses can also be kind of destabilizing to other people, like for people who don't want to accept the power of astrology into their life. And I'm talking, spitting out mad truth, it
Mm-hmm.
could be very destabilizing to their worldview and it could bring up a lot of fear. And so, coming up against someone who is like very Christian, and then I'm talking about astrology and they're seeing and witnessing other people resonating with what I'm saying, it challenges their worldview. And so Aquariuses can also be quite confronting to people as well, just depending. But at the end of the day, Aquariuses aren't necessarily meant to resonate with everyone, but are meant to find those that they do resonate with.
That's my response. I'm just like, yeah, yeah. Wow, so much in there. Well, first of all, that needed to be said because when you see those sayings on social media that are like you're not for everyone, it's true. I think Aquarius energies speak to that you literally, whether you have Aquarius placements or not, are not going to be for everyone. So embrace it and deepen into yourself, your frequency. And it made me think of something I've been thinking about called, I call it Uranian embodiment, but I can also say Aquarian embodiment because you talked about,
Or
you know,
chaos is daddy.
ooh, say it again.
Chaos is daddy.
Chaos is daddy. Look, because when you were talking about solving math problems in your own way and connecting to your genius, it's like, I feel like I wasn't taught this and I could still feel this when I'm in different spaces that like you could be looked at a certain way or shamed for embodying your own vibration, your own uniqueness, which again is basically yourself. And so I feel like I wanted to create a class about Aquarian Uranian embodiment to uplift, like, yeah, that's exactly what you do. You connect with yourself, find your resonance, you find who you resonate with. That's okay. Because
Yeah,
I feel like unless you don't hear this, you could walk in a room with your own hairstyle and your clothes, how you like to wear them, and you're just being you, and then you're a problem. You're
right.
whatever. And that's why I'm curious about Aquarius energies, because it's like Aquarius doesn't conform. Aquarius is not going to it Aquarius is its own, and sometimes that can rub people and systems the wrong way.
Until Aquarius does conform. And so this can bring us into the shadow expression of Aquarius, which um, all the signs kind of have this, like, I would say the vocabulary that I would use would be the excessive expression of Aquarius and the deficient expression of Aquarius. And so the excessive expression of Aquarius would be the extreme of this, where it's like, fuck the patriarchy, fuck the system. It's just like wants to like dismantle and destroy. That's not productive use of Aquarian energy. That's excessive. The
Hmm.
deficiency of Aquarius is actually, in a lot of ways, the inverse of this, where it's like, I want to resonate with the collective, so I will do, say, and be anything that is a mirror to the collective. So Aquarius loses their sense of self in that and conforms. So actually, Aquarius is also the sign of conformity
Oh, wow.
when
Wow,
we're
I never
in
thought of that.
the deficiency state of it. So there's a lot of Aquariuses who are like, an example would be like prom queen, most popular, but like, do you really know her? She's just like a mirror to the collective. Everyone's like, oh, I really like her, but I don't really like know what her worldview is. She doesn't really have an opinion. She doesn't really speak up. I'm looking at Aquarius Jennifer Aniston for that, is like kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a mirror to the collective, and we're like, okay, and like, are you gonna rock the boat at all? Because you have this platform to do so. I think that's like Aquarius in its deficiency. So there is a spectrum for all the signs that have these expressions where a lot of the signs can get inverted, especially when they're polished over with white supremacy or capitalism or consumerism.
Mhm. Oh
Yeah.
my God. See, I feel like there could be some sort of immersion, deep dive, something into exactly what you're talking about because we are living in deep Aquarian times. Not like, we've never lived in Aquarian times, but like right now, a lot of destabilization is happening because
And a
of
lot
all.
of the other end of like conformity
Yeah,
and not
yeah.
saying anything, like there's both ends of the spectrum happening in this very Aquarian time that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you ever want to do an Aquarius deep dive with your Aquarian perspective, because, later down, I ask about, and maybe I could just ask it now, like, what can we learn from Aquarius energy to navigate life right now? Because, and I'm sure that could be a multifaceted answer, but, there's the conformity, the destabilization.
Yeah. I think getting very clear on what your own unique vibration is away from the inherited family dynamics that you were born into the inherited culture that you were born into is Aquarius needs to have space. It is the sign of spaciousness. So creating space in your life that allows you to get clear on what your own unique vibration is, and astrology is one of those practices. It's why Aquarius is the sign that rules over astrology because it is a cosmic practice that gives us an objective perspective that allows us to understand our own unique vibration. And so I would say studying and learning astrology is a way to navigate these Aquarian energies. Can be as simple as that.
Yes. Absolutely. And the other question I have is, like Aquarius is stunning in all the ways, like
Ooh.
particularly, yes, stunning.
Oh, tell
That's
me
what
more.
I think Aquarius is stunning in the way that, there's the technological advancements and I think of airplanes, like I'm in awe of airplanes, like the fact that this
Yeah.
invention was made and has changed the world. And
Stunning like a lightning storm.
yes, I'm serious in awe. And so it makes me think of like the imagination. And this is not to say like now you're speaking for all Aquariuses, but I'm
Yeah.
interested in your perspective. Like, how would you describe Aquarian imaginations?
I would like to share it with you in the form of a poem that I recently wrote called Daughter of the Future. And it's about Aquarius, which to me is the daughter of the future.
Please.
Can, you want me to go now?
Yeah.
Okay. She doesn't come in soft. She arrives like a crack in the static, not loud but definite, like a filament snapping just before the light returns. There's no warning, only the hush that holds its breath long, only the edge of a sentence that's forgotten how to end. You think she's silence, but she's the signal, misread as chaos, but actually a map if you're willing to read it sideways. She lives in the flash between decisions, the half second between heartbeat and instinct, the space where you know without knowing why. She doesn't wait for your logic to catch up. She'll leave you mid thought, mid sentence, mid revelation. She is nerve, she is spark, she is brilliance, not a muse, a frequency. And you were never meant to be still. You were meant to pulse with electrical grace. You were meant to misfire with radiant haste. So when it comes, the flicker, the jolt, the breath you didn't mean to take, the gasp that comes involuntarily because there's cosmic shivers running up your spine. Don't chase it, let it scatter. Don't try to contain it, set it free. Let it mark you on a soul level. Let it move through. Let it invite a new version of you. Let it shake the cobwebs of ancestral grief. Let it loosen up dangling wires tangled in outdated belief because energy like this, she doesn't stay very long, but when she strikes and you wake up, your life will never be the same. And for this, we silently bow with celestial awe to the flash that split the dark, to the truth that cracked the shell, to the pulse that said, now, to the whisper and the static that reminded you who you are.
Wow. Woo, that was quite electric. Yes, those
Are you a
words.
daughter of the future?
I am. I have a lot of Aquarius, Aquarian, Uranus, Saturn things happening. And that's why I'm so interested in Aquarius perspectives. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you for receiving it.
Yeah, I can't wait to go back and listen to that. I definitely felt the lightning, the
Yes.
electricity.
It's electricity, but ironically and quite contrarian as Aquarian can be, it's the water bearer.
Yes.
Not a water sign, an air sign that brings you the water. So Aquarius is kind of like an air sign and a water sign, actually.
Yeah, it reminds me of what's that character on X-Men?
Storm?
Yeah, Storm. Yeah, Storm.
Yeah. It
The
also
water.
reminds me of in Mortal Kombat, Raiden. Do you remember Raiden?
Ooh, Raiden. I don't think I remember Raiden, but it's definitely the energy you don't see coming.
Yeah. Yes, Storm. I actually was at a drag show last night where someone was like doing Drag a Storm. But Raiden is like the most iconic character in the Mortal Kombat video game series, first appearing in the original Mortal Kombat in 1992. So it's like kind of bringing us back to the 90s again. But Raiden is the god of thunder and is the protector of the earth realm. And he's like wise, but sometimes like a stern like taskmaster. Like all of this is actually very Aquarian because Aquarius, again, Aquarian the contrarian, has different ruling planets. Traditionally, it's ruled by Saturn, which is the taskmaster, but from a modern perspective is ruled by Uranus, the planet of innovation and technology. And so Aquarius is both like the stern taskmaster, but also the one who's like the radical, electrical, innovative figure. Makes me think of Oprah, who's an Aquarius. You know, she's like stern taskmaster, but also very innovative and is like the queen of all media with like TV shows and podcasts and books and magazines. You know, she's very Aquarian, but also like kind of like intense in that Saturnian, like very structured business like way. And so Aquarius is kind of holding those contradictions and is very air sign. Like Oprah's very communicative, but at the same time is the water bearer who's like, but I'm bringing you water so you can drink and we're going to like process your emotions. Like Aquarius also as the water bearer helps us process our emotions. And it's kind of like that relationship that lightning has to water. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And
Yeah.
also in the shadow of it right now, as Pluto's in Aquarius, we're also seeing um, that when you use things like AI, we're learning that it takes water power to do so, and that as a technology, it's the technology that has used the most water. And so this is like a big environmental concern, actually, is that AI is progressing so rapidly, but it also is somehow connected to our water sources.
Yeah. Yeah, this AI is it's big. Yeah. You know, it's just God, it never fails. The astrology of it all. Um, that's so interesting, that connection, Pluto and Aquarius and AI.
Yeah, and the
And
water, because water is a
mhm.
strong conductor. So when lightning strikes water, it spreads across the surface, kind of in like the Aquarian glyph again. And so water, especially salt water, is an excellent conductor. And so for all of us to navigate Aquarius energy, like you were asking before, is developing a relationship to our water as well, even though this is an air sign. And the card in the tarot that's associated with Aquarius is the star card, which shows typically a woman, but it could be any figure completely in the nude, right by a hot spring, pouring water back into the hot spring and then pouring water to the earth and bringing healing to the
Mm,
self through water. So if you have a bathtub, a hot tub, hot springs that you can get to that are mineral water that can help to reset the nervous system. These are great places to go. And I'm thinking I have a very Aquarian day to day. You know, on your podcast, and then I have a client after this, and then I need to record another podcast for my Cosmic Cousins monthly membership people because I'm 2 days behind on their monthly tarot spread, and then I have another client at that, so I'm online all day today. So I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to get to the hot spring after that. Like I need to take a bath after this. Like it's too much. Actually, we're gonna see in the coming years, especially now that Uranus is in Gemini and Pluto's in Aquarius, that if I'm not careful with how much I'm using technology, I could start to develop like a neurological disorder because it's too much electricity going through me. So I have to take these pauses and I have to have space where I'm letting the water bathe me. I'm blessing my water before I drink it, that I'm acknowledging that I need water in order to maintain this level of electricity.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
for all of us, like after you listen to this, go on a walk barefoot if you can and drink some water. I think
Hmm.
that's part of living in the desert is you can do those things more easily.
Oh yeah, you definitely need water in the desert. You don't think about going outside without any water, taking a walk without some water.
But
You
there's
know,
amazing hot springs out here, mineral waters that heal you. And that's why people have dwelled in the deserts, is because there's
Mhm.
also these oases.
That sounds amazing. I had a chance to go to a hot springs in New Mexico at
Uh-huh.
Ojo
Ojo
Caliente.
Caliente. Yeah, I love that place. Did you do a mud bath?
I didn't do a mud bath. I went into one of the spring or several of the springs, but I can't remember what the minerals are. But it felt so good, and actually being in the steam room was like very a spiritual a spiritual
Yes.
experience. Um, so
After you hang out with an Aquarius, you might need to like steam or like get in the, it's like intense. Like I said in the poem, she doesn't come in soft. She arrives like a crack in the static. Like it's like Aquarians can sometimes be very activating for people, which can be good, but also anyone who's listening to this podcast might need some space after to just be like, whoa, what just happened? I need to process this. And so imagine being an Aquarius. Like it's like I live with it. So it's a lot.
I totally hear you. I'm not an Aquarius sun, but I do have, my Saturn is in Aquarius. I have some other placements
Oh,
that
ooh, Saturn's at home in Aquarius.
yeah, I'm still trying to be friends with Saturn, but but I feel like I understand that electrical existence that you're talking about, and that's so real that part of self-care in order to show up in community and our networks is taking care of our energy systems. And because you were talking about the star card, I just have a few more questions, but I'm going to see if I can get to to one of these other questions I want to
I'm
ask. But
sorry. Am I derailing the conversation? I think we're flowing.
oh no, this is great. You're leading me right into my next question. It's just that I gotta find it. Okay, because I have this whole long thing.
Take your time. While we're doing that, we can all collectively take a deep breath together
Oh yeah, let's take a breath.
and exhale, releasing anything that needs to be discharged. Aquarius rules over the nervous system, so you can breathe into the nervous system, into the energy body, into the ankles is also Aquarius too. I think it's good to connect back in with the body. But wait, you're supposed to be looking while I guide us through.
Oh, okay. Well, I found it now,
Oh, good. Oh, good.
but I'm like, yeah, more of this, more like
Yes.
guidance around the nervous system, because especially when we're on social media and we have the emails, the text messages, news, our
Oh
nervous
gosh.
systems are constantly being activated, flooded. So, I never actually connected energy work with Aquarius, but
Oh
it's
yeah.
making more and more sense.
Oh yeah.
Um,
And you having Saturn in Aquarius, Saturn says, I want you to commit to this. Wherever Saturn's like, you need to commit to energy work and also to podcasting is very Aquarian. It's like Saturn, the taskmaster, in the sign of Oprah. So it's like Oprah showing up with a checklist, being like so silly, but like I think maybe you understand what I'm saying.
Oh, I do. I do.
Okay.
I think I've looked at Oprah's chart before. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, we have some
She's a
similarities.
Sag rising too, like you.
Yeah, I think she has Capricorn in the second house. I have Capricorn in the second house.
Yeah, because
So,
you're a Sag rising. Anyone that's a Sag
yeah.
rising, all the signs will line up the same. So she's an Aquarius sun in the third house because that's where Aquarius is in your chart too. Yeah.
Yeah, and we get to see how she's built. She's built her
Yeah.
media
And she's quite
influence.
she's quite a controversial figure, actually. Like she
Yeah.
brings up strong reactions from people.
Yeah, well, she is a part of the billionaire club, I guess. And so, you
Well,
know,
I think that a message that has come through around that because I did a project in 2018 on my podcast called Zodiac Queens. And it
Mhm.
was where we looked at famous people all with the same sun sign, and then we decided who is the queen of each sign. And so Oprah was named Queen of Aquarius, and it was kind of controversial. Like some people were really not into it, but she was also the highest scoring queen out of any other sign. Like she always got 88% of the votes. And so this number 88 kept repeating. And so I was like, what is 88 about? Because she kept getting 88% of the votes every single time. And 88 or 8888, like if you see the repeating number eight, is often considered a sign that is about financial flow and receiving resources and opportunities and finances that are aligned when you are aligned with your spiritual and universal gifts. And so that was a message that came through with her and also with Aquarian energy is that Aquarius is a quite abundant sign when they are in alignment with their universal energy, which is, also speaking to your birth chart. Like when you're aligned with your birth chart, things will flow in karmically that bring you into a place of support and eternal flow of giving and receiving. So I think, that mirrored to the collective of people being like, well, she's part of the billionaire club is an opportunity for us to kind of talk about wealth and what our beliefs are around wealth.
Mhm. You know what? You just reframed the number 8 for me because
Oh,
I've I've learned that 8 is actually like it's about money and resources, but I've learned that it's like, watch out for 8. I know it also connects to eternity, but I felt like I just got to reframe.
that's
Um
the angel number perspective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm like, interesting, that complete because I have, an 8 in my chart. But you're absolutely right. I think there does need to be a conversation about wealth because if we do look at Oprah and other people, other celebrities, it's also seeing their trajectory of like how she grew up to building building her media influence.
Yeah.
Um and that
Timeline jumping.
Yeah, and that translates into wealth.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, and you can see wealth in the chart, but also why maybe why I think a lot about Oprah is because she does have Capricorn in the second house, and that's always told me when it comes to the sea goat that you're gonna be building something. It might not be overnight, but that you're building something. And so, what does it mean to build and then enjoy the fruits of your labor? You know.
Yeah.
Um, but and I've also associated the number 20 with wealth also. So
Ooh.
have you associated 20 with wealth?
No, but I will now that you dropped that little cosmic cookie crumb in my path.
If you go look at some celebrity charts, look for 20.
Oh, well, I don't have any 20 in my chart, but
I
I
don't have
do
any
I do have
20s.
Jupiter in the second house.
Hey, shout out to that Jupiter in the second house.
Yeah.
I love that for you.
Thank
Um,
you.
I do. So we're gonna wind down. Okay, and my notes just went out, but I want to ask you about your podcast. But before I do that, gotta go to my other notes here. So, speaking of the star card,
Yeah.
you talk about the Pleiades star system, also called the Seven Sisters. Like you made a post about it on Substack. You also did like a workshop. It sounds like you have just wrapped that up. For people who aren't familiar with the Pleiades star system, can you share more about it?
Sure. The Pleiades are a star cluster found at 29 degrees of Taurus and 0 degrees of Gemini. They have all started their once every 2,000 years transition from a sign. So for the past 2,000 years, the Pleiades have all been in the sign of Taurus. And starting in the year 2000, the first one, Alcyone, shifted into Gemini. And so by the time we get to 2040, all seven sisters will have transitioned from Taurus to Gemini. And so they also speak to this time period similar to us entering into the age of Aquarius, where these seven sisters are now all leaving Earth for air. And so it's echoed in the Aquarian age of us transitioning into more air. So this is a very like deep dive esoteric way of connecting to astrology that's not necessarily for the beginner unless you're particularly just drawn to the Pleiades. It's kind of separate from astrology, to be honest. It is more of this mystical practice of connecting to the stars in the sky. And so the Pleiades are visible by the naked eye, and they have a history of being known as used for navigation. So people who were out to sea would often use the Pleiades as a form of navigating before we had, the certain technologies that we have today. But the stars are a certain technology, and I think that's what's so interesting as Aquarius as a sign is connected to both technology and the stars. And I think we forget in our modern day that the stars are technology and design, and that they have a lot to teach us about what it means to be these little specks of stardust here on planet Earth.
Hmm. Yeah, I love how you're making these connections. Um, because, I think in my own life, sorry, I got to look at my notes just to, in my own life, I feel like when people hear about like a star system like the Pleiades, I don't know, sometimes it seems like any sort of star knowledge without kind of the context that you gave it, like it gets dismissed as like new age or not real. And I know you're not into like convincing people of anything, but it's like if you had to, I just feel like that's maybe um people aren't connected to the cosmos like that because they weren't taught, or it was
Yeah.
demonized. But like, what would you say to someone? What encouraging words would you give to people to like connect to the stars? Because it just feels like everything's not new age.
The tagline to my podcast used to be, it's not anymore, maybe I should bring it back, was um, you're listening to Cosmic Cousins Soul Centered Astrology for grounding that ass from all the new age sass. Because uh, I am very new age sassy, but also I'm like grounding it too. That I think when I talk about the Pleiades, it's a very grounded approach to working with them. That's not bypassing the realities of our world and actually rooting us in a more ancient understanding of, the Pleiades were used for navigation, but they were also used to tell the time of the year, that when the Pleiades were rising, it meant this certain time of the year. So they've also been used to understand how we can align ourselves with the rhythms of the earth for farming practices, agricultural practices, healing practices. All this information lives and breathes in the stars. And at the same time, a lot of this information has been lost over time because of modernization.
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's an ancient remembering, really connecting to these stars, and we all have it embedded in our DNA. Um, and so if it's calling to you, I would trust in that. Get your hands on a book, read, but also close the book, tune into it yourself, and channel messages that you want to write and see if it matches with what other people are saying and sharing. And go out and look at the sky.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Hopefully you didn't hear that the background noise. Well, just to kind of tie everything together. So yeah, speaking of that workshop that you did, it was called Seven Sisters Rituals for Energetic Hygiene and Grief Alchemy. Well, you talk about how like you co-facilitated it with the Pleiades. And so just returning back to like these ideas of like the nervous system, energy hygiene, like you said something like when Uranus entered Gemini and transited the Pleiades. I don't know if Uranus is still transiting the Pleiades
It
right
is all
now.
year,
It
all
is,
year.
it is.
Yeah,
And
because
then you
Uranus will be at 29 degrees of Taurus and 1 degrees of Gemini all year. So Uranus is transiting the Pleiades right now, all year.
right now, and you write how this is a portal of deep remembrance, emotional healing, and energetic restoration. And those
Yeah.
words just like stuck out to me. I wanted to ask about energetic restoration, but then I was like, emotional healing.
Yeah.
Um, yes. So maybe this could be, we're gonna wrap it up here, but um, any thoughts on emotional healing during this time?
Um, well, I think what I was sharing about Aquarius's connection to the water, Aquarius does bring emotional healing. And I think that my perspective on emotional healing will be through the Aquarian vantage point, which again, Aquarius rules over things like technology and astrology. And so, how do you utilize the power of technology and astrology to bring emotional healing to your life? That would be
Mhm.
my question that I would pose. And even having these conversations on a podcast also contribute to emotional healing. And so, yeah, Aquarian is a sign that brings emotional healing to people's lives and radical ways. It's like, um, in some ways, for those who are experiencing a lot of heaviness, like grief, personally, collectively, which so many of us are now that Pluto, which is a planet deeply connected to grief, is in a sign like Aquarius, that practices that are Aquarian can help us navigate grief. And so instead of being like deep in the emotional feels of grief, Aquarius communicates to us, let's bring a radical perspective. And so to encapsulate that, it's like the times I've heard people say, wow, I just got more out of our 90-minute astrology reading than I did in 10 years of therapy. That is Aquarius, where it's like lightning only strikes a few times a year in the location that you live. And it's like you only get an astrology reading like a few times a year, and it just like, zoom, it like
Mhm.
illuminates the darkness so that you can see and shakes things up and burns things away that no longer serve. So, like, lightning can strike like a tree, and that tree like burns and it's like composted. That's a natural part of life, actually. And so
Mhm.
I think Aquarius's relationship to emotional healing has that sort of jolting energy where it's like a few times a year is great, you know? And that emotional healing does not have to necessarily be this deep, dark, scary thing. It can actually be exhilarating. And so maybe going to like a breathwork circle twice a year helps to like facilitate that process. Aquarius is also an air sign connected to community and to the breath, and it might be an intense 60 to 90-minute session that you have, but that it will break free things and also allow you the space that you need to process. And so, whatever practices you have in your life that bring emotional healing in a way that isn't just, this deep, dark, scary thing, but is also illuminating.
You know, Jeff, I could just speak to you for hours, really, because you just I feel like you have so much to share, and I know we're getting close to time here. Um, there were some other questions I had about, basically you saying on your website that astrology is this practice of self-discovery and deep soul inquiry. And you also have this part of your practice where you explore astrology through somatics and movement. And it's just like a very rich, just feels very rich. And I just want to encourage you to keep sharing. I encourage listeners to check out Jeff's work. Uh, Check out their podcast, everything
Thank
that
you.
they're offering. I personally just resonate, like I said. And so before we end, I'd love to ask, do you have any last thoughts on your heart that you'd like to share?
Um, I would just like to mirror back to you just how held I felt in this experience, how touched I am that you reached out and that you carved out the space in your life and went through hoops to make it happen. You know, I think you rented out a room in a library to make it happen, and you're coordinating your headphones with your shirt, which made me feel at ease. It's this nice, like pale pink color that just feels very relaxing. And you have this stone behind you, abalone. Is that how you say it? This abalone stone. Did I get it right?
It's abalone shell. It looks like a
The
stone.
abalone shell. Oh, the abalone shell is behind you. And yeah, it's just giving like cosmic mermaid realness. And I enjoyed swimming in the waters with you today. So thank you for having me. And thank you to the listeners for inviting me into this space with you. And I hope that whatever you receive today acts as a ripple effect of healing in your life and in the lives of those around you.